Hey YouTube, how you guys doing today? Kevin here coming back at you with another video. So what you're looking at is a Magneto right here on the floor. This is the point style used in many Kawasaki's all across the land. So I'm going to answer a few questions that have been coming up. I answer a lot of questions, and that's what we do on this channel. We fix bikes together, right? We're in this together. Alright, no bike left behind. So I had one question about the condenser. First off, you should always replace your points and condenser together. Okay? I had a question on the wiring. There's 3 wires. Yes, there is. There are 2 blue, 1 black. The 1 black goes into your electrical harness and to your main harness. 1 blue wire comes off your charge coil. Which one's the charge coil? This one right here. Comes off your charge coil, goes to your condenser, and then the other blue wire goes from your condenser back down through into your points. Okay? So, it goes, black wire goes to your main harness, to your kill switches and your ignition coil. The 2 blue wires, one comes off your charge coil to your condenser, and from your condenser to your points. Okay? That's how that works. Now, what is the point gap and how do you adjust it? There's the screw right there. You're going to loosen up, and then this thing's going to go all loosey-goosey on you. You have to adjust this through the window. These are when you refer to a window, these are what you're referring to right here, these windows. Okay, so I got one right up in here for you guys. Right here. And I don't know if you guys can see too well. Hopefully you guys can. But right up in here, see that line? Right there on the block? That's your alignment line. And then see this line right here? There's one there. And it also goes up top as well. Right there. Those lines have to be lined up. That's for your ignition timing. So you're going to loosen up the screw through the window. And then you're going to use your points, your fill gauge, and gap them. So what you're going to do is you're going to loosen up the screw until it loosens up. Until the gap opens up. You're going to put this in here. And you're going to put a little pressure on it until it just closes. Until it just touches the fill gauge on both ends. The contact point should just touch it. Not moving the Magneto past that line. It's got to stay aligned. Once it's aligned, and you get your fill gauge in there, and they're touching the fill gauge, which is this, on both sides, then you tighten down your screw. Okay? And this right here is an 0.014 to 0.016, and it's a that's the SAE, and then you got your 0.35 and your 0.40 millimeters. Okay, so those are the 2 measurements for this in American and what do you call it there? Metric millimeters. Okay, so SAE and metric system. Must keep this on. Also, it's very important to put a drop of motor oil onto this piece of felt, because this is your wiper. This, right here, wipes the cam clean, so it doesn't destroy your points. Because what happens is, this thing is spinning around. If there's no oil on it, this piece gets dry and starts to burn up. When this burns up, it decreases your points, and then eventually you will have no spark. Okay? So it's very important to lubricate this felt, because this lubricates the cam, which will lubricate your points, and by lubricating your point piece right here, it won't burn out and change the gap. Alright? What I use for a file is I use a file from CVS, from the pharmacy. You can get it at any pharmacy. It doesn't have to be CVS, but that's the one I go to. And just a regular file you can stick in the window, into the points. Oh, let's see if we can get them in there. And clean them up. Okay? Once your points are clean, that should help your points, and then you re-gap. Okay? On your condenser, how do you change a condenser? Well, condensers are real easy. There's a 1 Phillips screw there. You're going to bend this tab one way, that tab the other way, and then you're going to see a ball of solder. You need to use a heavy-duty gun. Okay, a heavy-duty soldering gun. If it has to have that style tip on it. If it is a rod style, it will not be enough to melt it. If you have one of those little torch ones, It's not going to be enough. You need one of these big induction ones. Okay? That is a heavy-duty soldering iron right there. Heavy duty. This video right here is going to be based upon ignition systems. And that's what I'm trying to help you guys. I'm going to show you guys how to isolate your bike if you think you have an electrical problem with your bike. Doesn't matter what coil system you have. Okay? This is for every bike. This is for the TS 125 Suzuki, the KE 100s, the KM 100s. It's going to work for the KD 80s and everything else. So we're going to use my KD 80 as an example. It doesn't matter if you're working on a pair of old KMs. It doesn't matter if you're working on a newer KM. It doesn't matter if you're working on a pair of beautiful KE 100s. It don't matter if you're working on a TS 125 Suzuki. And it don't matter if you're working on a KD 80. Okay, so many of you guys know that I converted my KM, my KD, and my KE 100, and this is the KD 80M, over to CDI ignition. Okay, so this is going to work for points and CDI and everything in between. What we are doing is remember the ignition switches I showed you? This bypasses the ignition switches. This bypasses the handlebar switch, the kill switch. Alright, so we're going to do some testing right now, and I'm going to show you guys, well, not testing, bypassing. Okay? So I'm going to bypass the ignition switch on my KD80. Now I'm going to start the bike up so you guys can see that the bike runs perfectly fine first. Okay, so we have confirmation that the bike runs, no problem. Now we're going to disconnect the tank, if we can. Seat off. Alright, let's get that tank ripped off. I chose this bike because it's real easy to work on. Tank's off. Okay. So what you're going to be looking for on your bike is you're going to be looking at the connector right here. Alright, here's your black wire right here. Now if you're the KE or KM, you're going to have a green wire with that. That green wire is for your neutral safety light, but we don't care about any of that. We just care about the black wire. So we're going to disconnect your gauges. This, by unplugging this, you're disconnecting your kill switch up in here. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. We're disconnecting the kill switch up top here. We're disconnecting the key switch by unplugging it. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you guys a handy little tool. This right here is my test lead set, 10-foot retractable. You can pull them out, real easy to work with. Okay, and I'm just going to use two of the same wires. Put this up in here. We're going to take yours will be white connector, okay, or a blue connector. We don't care, we just want the black wire. And if it's an older bike, it's not going to have a connector at all, it's going to be on its own wire. Okay? Now I'm going to switch you guys over to the other side of the bike. We're going to scoot over here. Now remember, this bike has been converted over to CDI ignition. Okay? CDI ignition. Now, well, where is the coil? Here's the coil. Alright, here's the coil right there. We're going to disconnect the coil. And we're going to plug our wire, lead wire, right onto that. Okay. Just like so. Now we're going to start the bike with, I'll show you. Everything is disconnected. See how that switch is in the off position? Yep, we're going to give these leads a little bit more lead wire. There you go. Make sure it's on there good. Don't want that thing to fall off. Alright, and then we'll start the bike up. And that, my friends, how it's done. I bypassed the whole ignition system, except for the magneto is plugged directly into the coil. Now if I want to shut the bike off, I just go like this. Disconnect the magneto right from the coil. That's all there is to it. Okay, there's nothing special about doing this, okay? The ignition switch is off up top. Basically, it's coming right out of the mag. Okay, so your magneto is under this cover right here. The black wire that comes out and goes up and around is going to be plugged directly into your coil. That's how you bypass your whole entire electrical harness. You don't need anything else. The CDI is built into the coil. Okay, this has been converted over to CDI. Now, I'm going to show you guys a little something else. I happen to have the CDI coil. This is actually the coil that we used on this bike. There's nothing wrong with it. But I did this for a purpose, okay? You guys heard this bike run. And when you guys comment on my page and I tell you something's going to work, I mean it's going to work, okay? That's because I've already done the research for you guys. And I want you guys to know that I've done the research for you. This is the Kawasaki KE100 ignition coil for a CDI. You can see the shape of it. Okay, how big it is. It's not the gray coil. It's the shallow. I call it the shallow because it's shorter here. CDI. Now, that ignition coil that's on this bike right now is from a DS80. Okay? And I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to unplug it real quick. I'm going to disconnect it. I'm going to show it to you. And I'm going to use my impact gun. Guys, I love this gun. This gun is a really awesome gun. It's a Milwaukee. It's called the Milwaukee Fuel. And you see those LEDs right there. It tells you how much battery life. And it's got an LED in the front. Okay? And it comes on for 30 seconds. This is an impact driver. I upgraded to the 4.0 batteries instead of the 2.0. They're all lithium. And it's a brushless motor. So these batteries last a long time. Well, anyway, I'm going to zap that coil off real quick. And I want to show you guys something. And just like that, the coil is off, no questions asked. Okay, so this is the coil right here. You can see how fat it is because the CDI is built into this one. This one's made by Nippon Denso. Okay, that right there is the part number that'll work on your CDI bike. So if you have a KE100 from 1996 to 2001, that's the part number of an ignition coil that will work on your bike. Now, Nippon Denso has been making ignition components since the beginning of the bikes, okay? Even Harley Davidson uses them. Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, Harley Davidson, Triumph, and BSA, what do you call it there? They all use them. BMW, they all use them. All these bikes use Nippon Denso. Nippon Denso has their hands in the water. Why? Because Nippon Denso is a good product. It's just a great product, and all the companies use them. So, I wanted to show you guys the bike running using a DS80, which I'm keeping on this bike, by the way. I'm not bringing it back to the, what do you call it there, the factory KE coil. There's no need to. This is the same exact coil. It's just a little differently shaped, but the same thing. I'm going to unplug all this stuff, plug this all back in. Alright, bring this around town, plug you in there, and that's pretty much it for that. So I wanted to show you guys that type of stuff. So if you guys have any problems with your ignition coil, make sure you clean your points first, and make sure, this is the kicker, okay? Your ignition ground is right here. Make sure your posts are clean. Make sure that it has good contact from here to the bolt, because on the older coils have a little tab, which I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to put the bike back together real quick, and then I'll show you guys. So let me get my bike back together, and then we'll go and check that out. So I'm going to put the bike back together. We got the ignition coil back on. That's the DS80 coil. We're not going to use the factory CDI coil. We're going to use the Suzuki coil on this bike. Why? Because we can, and it's the same thing. Okay. All right. tank on. Make sure my wires are not pinched. Fuel tank strap. Seat. And fuel line. Okay, bike is all back together, no questions asked. I want to show you guys a common problem with these bikes, with all of them. Okay, the wires come up through here, and sometimes they get chafed. That was the problem with this bike at one point, and the guy who had this bike before me had to make a connection right here. You can see right here where his connection was bad, which we're going to fix that up a little. We're going to solder that together because I never fixed it. I just left it the way he had it. But anyway, that's a common problem. What happens is the wire gets pinched in between the fuel tank where it gets in there. Very common to get pinched in there, and then when you go put the bike back in, it won't run because the ground is broken. Okay, or it's grounded out, shorted out. So if you had your fuel tank off, check that right there first, because that could be your whole entire problem. The other part you're going to look at, the other part you guys are going to be looking at is that ground strap right here. Okay, you're going to want to make sure it's clean. This is the KE coil. This is the bigger one. If you guys have points ignition, you want to make sure these are clean, because that is your system ground right there. Okay, and a lot of people think that their bike coils are bad, when it turns out it's actually a coil ground. These coils right here have been around for a long time, okay? This is also a Nippendenso, and it's been around for a very long time. And I have not seen any of these gray coils go. I would be pressed to see one. If someone has one that is bad, I would like to use it in one of my videos and prove myself wrong. I just have never seen a bad one. I mean, seriously, you can take one of these and put a mark on it and send it to me, and I will put it in one of my personal bikes and try it out. Because I have never seen a bad one of these. I mean, I've seen them in pretty rough shape. I've replaced them because someone cut the lead down too far and it wouldn't reach the plug. But I have never seen an actual bad one on these 6-volt coils. Same thing with the, what do you call it, the old style, you know. This is a Tech, and I have never seen one on a Tech go bad. This is for the KD80. And this is for the early KD80s, and I haven't seen one of these go bad either. So, keep that in mind. These things are not, they don't go bad. And these ones right here, these orange ones, let me shrink you guys down for a minute. These orange ones right here that they sell on eBay. Oh yeah, it'll work on a KE100. Oh yeah, it works on CDI ignition. No, it does not. It only works on CDI ignition if you have an ignition module. There is no CDI built into this coil. Only time this will work on a bike is if you have a CDI module. The module on a KE100 1996 to 2001 is built into the coil. So there is no possible way for this to work. There is none. Not going to happen. It doesn't have the circuitry inside of it. That's why the KE100 96 to 2001 is so fat, because the CDI is built into it. You will not find a module on that bike. And remember, if you're going to do a condenser, it's going to have to be soldered properly, and you need an induction soldering gun like this one. Okay? So, that's pretty much it what I got for you guys for today. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you guys have any questions, any comments. Hopefully this right here, this video will cover it. That's pretty much all there is to your ignition system. If you clean your points and you still don't have spark, replace them. That's it. Replace your points and condenser. What is a condenser and what does it do? This, if you don't have this in the circuit, every time this point makes a contact, it's going to arc. It's going to be sparks. It's going to be like welding. The condenser takes that voltage it takes the spark away. So it's a very light, it leaves very little ash. Okay? If you open up your points and they are black, I mean ash everywhere, that means your condenser has failed. Okay? That has failed. And do you see that black around it? That's the margin right there. You don't want the solder to touch the outside, because that was shorted out as well. Make sure your solder stays in a ball in the center. Okay, guys? And that's pretty much all I got for you guys for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. You guys have been a great audience. And I just want to say thank you guys for everything you guys do. We have a little bit of a project coming up. This is the CDI off of a DS80. Look at that right there. ND. Nippon Denso. Look at that, huh? Also, this is for a Suzuki DS80. This was actually mated with that coil that you guys saw in the video. That Nippon Denso coil was hooked up to this very CDI. So this is going to make its way into the Suzuki TS125. And that's how we're going to do that. So we're going to be doing that, and we're going to change out this coil right here to a 12 volt. So it's going to be a CDI 12 volt. Once again, they are separate circuits. Okay? Well, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.